Hey, entrepreneurs, are you wasting money on fake clicks? Every year, businesses pour billions of dollars into digital advertising. But what if a chunk of that budget is being stolen by bots, malware, or fraudulent clicks? In today's episode of Profit with a Plan, I sit down with Rich Kahn, co founder and CEO of Anura, to expose the massive cost of ad fraud and why false positives and fraud detection could be sabotaging your marketing ROI. Today, you're going to learn how much ad fraud is really costing businesses, why false positives can be dangerous as actual fraud, and how to ensure that your decisions are based on real data, not deception. So if you're spending money on ads, you need to hear this conversation. Don't let fraudsters drain your budget. So tune in on today's Profit with a Plan and take control back of your marketing dollars. Hey, entrepreneurs, if you're ready to boost your profit and grow your business, welcome to Profit with the Plan podcast, where we share strategies to help you scale your company, increase your profitability, and set up for a successful exit. I'm your host, Marcia Riner, a business growth strategist and the profit booster behind Infinite Profit. I've helped countless entrepreneurs to build a highly profitable and sale ready business. That's more money now and a bigger payout later. By the way, today's episode is sponsored by Infinite Profit, where we don't just talk profit, we deliver it. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level, visit infiniteprofitconsulting.com. But before we dive in, I've got something special for you. If you're feeling like you're doing everything right, but not seeing the results you want, it might be time for a fresh perspective, if I can get my mouth to work. That's why we're offering a free growth and marketing audit. In just one powerful session, we'll uncover opportunities that could drive real growth for your business. If you're ready to make that impact, go visit profitbooster.biz and let's get started. All right, let's jump into today's show. My guest today is Rich Kahn. Rich is the co-founder and CEO of Anura. He's a proud father of four and a serial entrepreneur since 1993. Rich is a dedicated professional with decades of experience in digital marketing. He started Anura, an ad fraud solution designed to improve the campaign performance by accurately exposing bots, malware, and human fraud. His track record of success includes operating businesses that have made the Inc. 5000 list for 5 years in a row, achieving an Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year award for technology, and operating one of the fastest growing advertising and marketing companies in the U.S. So welcome, Rich. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. This is a great topic.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Okay, so I usually ask people how they got into their space, how did you get into marketing, and some people go back, well, I sold lemonade when I was 4, but really that's not the topic I want to talk about. How in the world did you find out that businesses were getting cheated by bots and marketing fraudsters?
Oh, let's see. Since I started my digital marketing career in 93, somewhere along, I've just been seeing issues of fraudulent activity, of theft of services, just hackers taking advantage of other people. It's kind of just something that I've seen over the years. And to get a little bit more specific, probably later on in a little later on in my career, 2003, my wife and I started an ad network. Kind of like the best way to describe it is Google, but small, right? Nowhere near that size, right? So much
Really
smaller.
small compared to Google.
And so we launched it in 2003. In 2004, I had a few customer complaints about some issues with traffic quality.
Mm.
Started digging into the analytics and found out that it was fraud. I was able to
Mm.
clearly see it was fraud. So I went out and said, you know what? I've seen fraud in the 90s. I knew it existed. By now, there's got to be some type of company out there solving fraud because I don't want to be the guy solving fraud. Hint, hint. And what ended up happening was I looked around, and for about, I'd say, a solid month and a half, I combed the internet and looked all over, talked to people that I knew, and there wasn't a fraud solution out there. In
Hmm.
fact, hindsight, later on, 2008 was the first commercially available fraud solution that you can license out in the marketplace. So I was a few years ahead of it. So I figured as a developer, let me just write my own because where a company's not going to go anywhere unless I solve this problem. So I
Right.
went ahead and wrote some code and it worked great. But the problem is fraud evolves. So you had to keep evolving the software and growing the software. And about 10 years later, I looked up and realized, wow, there's really a market for this type of product. And clients were asking, if not begging, to use our service outside of our ad network. Because again, as we were small, they wanted to use it in Google. They wanted to use it in other areas that were out in the marketplace, Facebook. They wanted to test it, affiliate marketing. They wanted to use it outside of our network. And originally it was like, well, if you want it, you got to buy traffic through us. But we weren't big enough to support all their traffic needs.
Got it.
So they asked for it. And I remember one time shoehorning it in for a client just to see if it would work as a standalone product, to see if it would work. And it was amazing. It worked great. The client would loved it. And that was the thing. Okay, it's time to launch this as a standalone product. So, I mean, we were looking at it for years, but that's really kind of like the evolution of how it became today, where it's Anura was a standalone fraud solution that we launched in 2017.
Wow. That's really interesting because, I don't think people, at least, I don't think the business owners realize that there's so much fraud out there, right? I ran a campaign, and I am not a campaign genius by any means, but I ran a campaign and I was like, well, we kept tweaking the campaign down to where all I could get is like a general front page of like YouTube. I couldn't get any of my ideal target because everybody that ended up on my page that was supposed to be my ideal target was like, a Russian porn star or, some political statement. I'm like, whoa, how did all this happen? And the only thing that I could think of was that there were bots and different things that were clicking onto it, making it go a direction that I didn't want it to go. And I wasted thousands of dollars on that campaign.
Yep. And again, that's a lot of what happens. People don't realize, in fact, probably 80% of the clients that we bring on had no idea a solution like this existed.
No.
At least weren't even using one. And they just didn't know how big of a problem it was. Like, it's probably just the cost of business, a couple percentage points, not a big deal. Meanwhile, we're averaging 25% of all marketing budgets are fraudulent.
Mm.
When I bring on a client for the first time and we do the initial scan, the average is 25%. Some are more, some are less. Um,
Jeez, that's a
and
lot of money. That is a lot of money and wasted time.
or let's put it this way. So last year, and I forget the number, it was well over $600 billion that was spent globally on digital marketing. And based on our estimates and what we see based on the marketplace and extrapolating that out, we're estimating that $140 billion was stolen by fraudsters just in digital marketing.
Wow. Wow.
People can't
That's
sit there and say, it's not happening to me. It's no longer a question of if, it's a question of how much.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I always thought like, I mean, I'm playing kind of my own dumminess here, but I always thought that it's like you have to be careful when you set up your ad in Google or Facebook because Google and Facebook just wants to spend your money, right? So they're going to spend it on the fastest, easiest way going. But I didn't realize that there were all these other attackers coming in and spending my money, my ad money, by just randomly clicking. So a question back to you. Google and Facebook make money by spending my ad money. Do these fraudsters, these bots and these outsiders, do they make any kind of money off of just attacking my ad campaign?
They do. And my definition, when I defined click fraud or fraud and ad fraud in general, it talks about making money. A fraudster makes money either directly or indirectly. So what that means is there are people that have feeds to Google, which means Google doesn't get all 100% of its traffic from Google. When you're setting up a Google campaign, by default, the little checkbox says end partner and networks.
Hmm.
So again, you're thinking like CNN, weather.com, but then
Yeah.
smaller sites,
Reputable companies
right? But then there's much smaller sites that generate some volume
that
and
get paid.
they get paid. So there's an incentive to defeat that system. And a lot of times it's not those people, it's where they're buying traffic, right? So they might be buying traffic from affiliates, which have 45% fraud. They might be buying traffic from programmatic, which has 50% fraud. It's the biggest marketing channel out there, and it's got the biggest fraud event because it's just the way it's built. So again, the numbers are staggering. So it's funny, like you can play with it a little bit and say, okay, well, who does it? Who's committing fraud? And based on our estimates, it's organized crime.
Mm.
So if you're doing digital marketing and not doing anything to protect your budget from fraud, you're technically supporting organized crime.
Oh my gosh.
When you think of it that way, I mean, that's taking it out to the extreme, but that's
Sure.
logical. That's how it's
Wow.
going. So how do you take, how do you defend yourself? How do you protect yourself? Now, again, if you apply a technology like ours to a campaign, the average client will see a 20 to 25% lift in ROI. So there's a big value. Like if there's any time like, and you said as a marketing manager, if you can improve the ROI by 20, 25% by flipping a switch, why wouldn't you?
Oh my goodness. Exactly. And I could also imagine that. So here's one of my biggest pet peeves with marketing companies, and it is that they have to test your ad, right? They have to go out to market, see what the results are, then come back and tweak it. And it's this, 3 to 6 month process of testing your ad, randomly spending money, making sure that your ad is dialed in correctly, to use their language. In my mind, that to me is a waste because I think that marketing company, if they know my business, they should know how to get there sooner, better, faster, stronger, right? But then on top of that, losing 25%, that just slows the process. So
Yeah.
if you could have that process dialed in better, then you're getting better metrics and data to be able to tweak your ad properly rather than not filtering through the fraudsters and the bots and organized crime who's taking your ad money. This is crazy.
Well, think about it this way. So, like you said, that's another, fault of fraud is it skews the data. So
Mm,
now you have these smart marketing people who know what they're doing, making good decisions based on bad data.
mm.
So if you're making good decisions based on bad data, you get a bad result. And it could take longer to get to your ultimate result. Because some people are like, well, no, I'm a performance-based marketer. Like I look for when somebody fills out a form so we have a lead that we can sell. Well, they beat those forms. What they do is they go online, they grab your information, right? Marissa, your information's online. They could be easily picked up, easily get your phone number, easily get your email address, business address, whatever information they need to fill out a form. They click on a link. They're going to get paid for that click, or they're going to get paid for filling out that form. They put all your information in, check the little box that says, contact me, hit submit,
And they never show up for the appointment.
or you could no. But what happens is, so now let's say it's a car insurance ad, right?
Okay.
Somebody puts an ad on Google, puts a car insurance ad on there, and the fraudster gets paid for that click, so they can click on that ad landing page. Now, if they kept on doing that, just going to the landing page and doing nothing, any any marketing manager worth their weight would automatically go and say, okay, we're going to block this keyword, we're going to block this source of traffic, we're going to do something with this. Like we know there's a problem there because it's not converting. So they're smart enough to know, hey, 1 out of 30 or 40 times I click, I have to fill out a form to validate the chain to continue getting paid. So then they take stolen information, fill out the form, hit submit. The marketing manager says, oh, the conversion flag fired. This is a good source. Guess what? We want more of it. Now, what happens is, let's say you're selling this to an Allstate, right? For example, Allstate then picks up the phone, calls Marissa, and says, hey, I'm calling you based on the information you filled out on the form. And you're like, wait a second, where'd you get my information from?
Right.
That creates all kinds of issues. And this is off the topic, but that's a TCPA violation. It's one of the fastest growing lawsuits in this country. So this is happening nonstop. So, right now, I can guarantee you and your audience, your phone rings and you don't answer it. Why? Because 9 times out of 10, it's not for you. Or
Mm.
they're calling you and you didn't give them information to call you. Technically, a legitimate business, in order to call you, needs expressed written consent to call.
Right.
And I mean, before this call, I had 3 calls that took place from time I had lunch to the time I was sitting down having this conversation of people that I know. If I pick up that phone and ask them who it is, it's telemarketer trying to sell me something, and they're not allowed to do that. So how's that happening? It's because somebody's using my stolen information, filling out forms. They think they have consent. I laugh because a funny story. When we first started this back in 2017, 18, my mother-in-law, she was trying to understand what we did. Like it's technical what we do, but like it's there's
Sure.
ways of describing it. And she didn't quite get it. And then she got a phone call from somebody from a bank that said, "Hey, we're calling you because we want to save you money on your mortgage." So this is a company who probably bought mortgage leads of people who are trying to reduce or refinance their mortgage. And she was upset because she's like, "I don't have a mortgage. Where'd you get this information from?" And she had the argument, got the supervisor on the phone. They apologized profusely. They didn't know what was going on. And she hung up the phone. She goes, "Oh my God, what a pain in the neck that was." I go, "That's what we solve."
Exactly.
It just clicked. Then she got it. She understood what we do.
Wow. What a terrible experience to have to do that. It's like you're kind of like, when people realize what it is that you do, their eyes are going to be so open to the fact that it's everywhere. And it's this like wicked virus that's going out there that is taking your time, your marketing efforts. And if you're click and removing, your story you said where, this keyword gets removed because it's not working properly, that's damaging what could have been a really good, campaign potentially. But because some fraudster came in and did that, they're sending you down a different rabbit hole that may not perform well. And I think
Agreed.
that's the piece that today's business owners really don't get because either they've handed off everything blindly to their marketing team and said just do it, right? Or if they do understand it, they don't understand it to this level. And it's a terrible waste.
Here's another example of that, just because we talked about directly, just taking money. Well, there's an indirect way to make money off of fraud too. Let's say you own, let's pick on poor Allstate again, right? So let's say Allstate's out there and they've got, I'll just call it a $10,000 a day budget to try to drive new leads into their agents. And Geico decides, no, I want to be number one listed there. And then Geico comes along and clicks on the ad a bunch of times to burn up the budget, drop them off the list, and then move themselves up the list so they can make money indirectly. Now they're not getting paid for those clicks. And there's software that I saved the link to software because there's automated software that allows you to do that.
Oh my gosh.
So basically, I could go online, I found it, anybody can find it, and it's called competitor fraud. So I basically put in your search terms that you show up under, put the URL that you come up under. So the software automatically, it's a bot. It searches the software inside of Google. It spoofs the IP address, so it looks like it's coming from different places. It clicks on, it finds a link, clicks on it, goes to the site, drops. You already paid for that click. And it just cycles it through until your ad stops showing up. And this is okay, they're clean. And now for the rest of the day, since the daily budget's been capped, your Geico would then show up number one.
Oh
Now,
my God, I hate
Geico does
these.
it,
I hate these ads. This is
but
really, this is really frustrating. So now that you've made me completely aware and afraid to spend another marketing dollar, on ads because it's going to be almost a waste of time. Um, how do we protect ourselves from this?
well, there are probably 80 to 100 different solutions in the marketplace that claim that they do fraud detection. And the reason for it, it's SaaS, right? SaaS business models are very sexy in the marketing space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's repeat income, it's clients that use, and software cost of software is generally less expensive, so it's got a high profit margin. So a lot of companies want to do this, and as a developer, and knowing what I know, I could literally take 3 to 4 weeks off and build a new company. It won't be good, but I can easily build another company if I have a good salesperson that can sell anything, right? They'll sell it to different people and I'll start making money. So everybody's familiar in the marketing space with the IAB, the Internet Advertising Bureau. About 12, 13 years ago, they came out with industry standards to
Okay.
say, if you're going to be a fraud detection solution, these are the industry standards that you must follow. Great. Now what? So now you can get certified that you're following those standards through a third-party audit, kind of like a SOC 2 audit. You want to get, third party comes in and audits your process and procedures and see if you're
Sure.
doing. So there are two companies that do it. One is called TAG, which is the Trustworthy and Accountability Group. And then another company is the MRC, which a lot of people are familiar with, which is the Media Rating Council. Both of these companies, what they do is they spend several months analyzing, going through your data, looking at your processes and procedures, what type of data you're collecting, how you do. Like they basically look up your skirt, so to speak, and look for everything that they can find and say either yes, you're following the standards, or no, you're not. And once if they say no, you're not, these are the things you're not following. Once you correct those things, then you get the seal of approval. And this happens, the third party audit happens at least once a year. And then you have to technically self audit the other 3 quarters of the year just to say, hey, the things have changed. We're still following standards. We haven't changed anything in our system. And
So how many of those companies, those 80 companies out there that are saying they do fraud detection are even doing that? That seems like a very time-consuming,
it's
intrusive procedure to get a certification.
yeah, it's very expensive. And there's only 7 companies that have completed the process and got accepted per year.
So those are the ones we want to go through.
Those are the ones you want to start with, right?
Okay.
Because now on into that umbrella. So if you look at the 7, they'll range, on what they do, what they specialize in. So the best way to do it is just ask for free trials.
Hmm.
Call the companies, get your demos, interview them all, see who you like, what pricing models they offer. Um, Focus more on the quality of the product than the price. There are some companies out there that are really cheap, but you get what you pay for. So you want to interview them, and then what you want to do is, regardless of which one you pick, run some free trials, play with their software, kick the tires, and make sure it works for you.
So as a marketing agency, if I were to engage a company such as yours or one of the top 7, right? I would assume you're on that top 7 list.
Yeah.
Um, and then I would use that for all of my clients, or do I have to often pay a licensing fee for each client that I'm working through?
Typically, the way it works with most of us is you get a license for the agency,
Okay, got it.
and then the agency just runs it and then does whatever they want with their clients. Uh,
Nice.
because you're the media buyer at the end of the day. So
Right.
we're going to protect you and any campaign you're running. So that's kind of how we do it. I don't know how every other company works, but that's just
Sure. So then in reality for the audience who are business owners, they're going to engage a marketing agency and they ought to be asking, do you have this certification or do you use a certified fraud detection? Because that's going to, I don't know how many agencies are actually using a product like this. I mean, because is it a popular thing with the agencies or is this something that not very many people are using?
it depends on the agency, right? So the question, you're right. You want to ask, what are you doing, or what do you use to detect and mitigate fraud?
Because this is huge, right? And this is an eye opener for me and I'm sure quite a few of the audience to go, I didn't realize that I should be asking this question. And again, we're not teaching business owners to be marketers. You know, the marketers should know their business, but we're teaching business owners to be aware that there's potential fraud out there and your marketing team should be protecting you.
Yeah. And like I said, it's something that it's been going on for decades. It's still a very little, because I guess I've spoken to agencies that say my clients aren't complaining and I get paid on spend, so I'm not going to do anything. But
God.
but my
So the
question is,
blind leading or the ignorant leading the ignorant,
yeah,
right? You know?
because they're all getting paid, right? So my question always is, what happens? And I say, just let's, okay, if you do nothing, you know what's going to happen. You're in the same
Of
boat.
course. You're losing if not, I would say minimum 25%, if not
Right.
more.
So what happens if you were to eliminate that 25%, which basically gives an ROI increase of 25%? So let's say we wave the magic wand, we flip the switch, and we increased your ROI across the board, across all your clients by 20 to 25%. What would happen? Demand
I'd
goes
be
up.
really happy.
Right. So as a marketing agency, you'd be proud that you were able to do such a big thing in such a short period of time. Your clients will see a lift in ROI. If they're making more money, they're going to spend more money with you. And at the end of the day, you grow even more than you would if you just kept a blind eye.
Exactly. That's what just boggles my mind is that there's benefit for both parties here, both sides of the coin, if they were to look at having this detection. And, you know, in the service world, right? There's there's a Starbucks on every corner, so there's a marketing agency in every 20 feet, right?
Mhm.
So you want to be able to designate yourself as, hey, this is why you should choose us, right? Because we're taking these extra steps. I think it's to me, it's a no-brainer.
I've got pitched by multiple marketing agencies to market our services, and I always ask them, "Great, what do you use for fraud detection?"
Eh.
They've got nothing. Oh, we manage the campaign down to ROI and spend it. I'm like, all right, but there's fraud there, and that's always the eye-opening question.
That's it's crazy. So yeah, so listeners, please ask your agency, are they using fraud detection on your marketing account? I mean, none of us want to throw money away, especially to random bots and competition clickers and organized crime
Yeah,
and everything that could come in. But what it does is if we're trying to be more profitable in our companies, right? And we're already spending, we already feel the adjustments that are happening to our marketing budgets, right? You're not getting as much as you used to get. So that means you have to spend more to get the same number of prospects that you were getting just a few years ago. Why not balance and fight that and see what you can do to get that marketing budget down
yeah. I always tell
or
people,
spend more, to have a better return?
right. I always tell people, look at put some dollars behind it, right? Let's just say the client's spending $50,000 a month. I'm just throwing out a number. Somebody's spending $50,000 a month in digital marketing from all the channels that they're buying, and they're losing $12,500 a month to fraud. So
It's crazy.
imagine if you remove that 12,500, replace it with real people, what the ROI on that's going to be. It's a,
Exponential,
yeah,
especially if your ads are dialed in to your ideal client and you're having those real conversations with the product and solution that they're looking for that you perfectly fit with. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that have to line up with that.
sure.
But if that's all lined up and you could get a 25% boost in real opportunities,
Yeah,
yikes. Here would be the question. What is your what is your lifetime value of that potential client? Right? It's often not one and done.
yeah.
How much money do you make from a client when they come on board? How much do you make for them year two, year three, year four? Yeah. And the number just is mind blowing to me that people would not touch it, would go, I'll put a blind eye up, as you said, and
And that's
not
why
not
we
focus on
typically
it.
focus on brands, right? Because if I talk to a brand and they're working with an agency and they're like, oh, this is something, because a brand doesn't want to spend a single penny on fraud. So a lot of times our way to get into an agency is we put the technology on the brand. They complain to the agency. Agency's like, oh, I didn't know this existed. Let me take a look, and that's how we blossom into that relationship. We had the same situation. We had an agency um, that was whatchamacallit, using one of our competitors. Um, Come to find out that none of the media buyers were using them because they found out that it just didn't work. So we came along. We said, one of our agreements is you have to use our code on the page, and we'll even give you access to data if you need to. And they're like, we don't need access to the data, just throw the stuff on. And a Google campaign went live, and the very next day I called them up and I'm like, I got 90% fraud. What did you turn me on to? Like, you were supposed to copy the original campaigns, move them over, and then start managing them. And they're like, where are you getting this data? And I'm like, I opened up my dashboard, walked them through the dashboard. Next thing you know, oh, a couple months later, they're rolling it out to their entire infrastructure because it made a huge difference in our campaign. And they're like, if we can do this with your campaign, imagine we can do with 300 campaigns, 300.
Exactly, exactly. And then the benefit to the business owner, the end user or end results, provider is huge because they don't even know now. Now they know, but they didn't know before that
Yeah,
this was even happening. So I think it's a win-win-win all the way across the board.
yeah. The only one
So
that loses out is a fraudster. And
yeah. So okay, let's talk about the difficulty. So implementing your system into my marketing company's program and I'm benefiting from it, right? So I've insisted my marketing company use you, right? How hard is it to get into to get it working? Is this a long process? Do I have to rewrite all my ads?
so 9 times out of 10, there's lots of different ways of doing it. It can get really complex depending on the technical people that are there. The general integration we tend to do, because 75% of sites are run by Google Tag Manager. We're pre-built into Google Tag Manager, so we can have somebody up and running within 3 minutes without technical resources.
Wow.
So a couple of
Wow.
checkboxes and you know publish it like what did I say? What is it? Publish it like you don't sing or something like that. I forget what it says when Google Tag Manager when you publish something new, but it's literally pre-built into Google Tag Manager. You find our application, you plug it in, you fill out a couple of things, we check a few boxes of how you want it to work, hit submit, you're done.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay. So now another question. Is this for only really big companies? Like, do I have to have a $50,000 a month ad spend to make this worthwhile?
So with us, the way we're designed, because we offer so many services, so much hand holding, everything else, we do focus on customers that are typically like 30 to $40,000 and above in digital marketing spend. Otherwise, a lot of times we go after the agency, who obviously in aggregate has that, and they can roll it down. So a lot of times we'll have customers that come to us, and if the cost isn't going to work out, like our price versus what they're spending in fraud is like a wash, it's not worth it, then we have some agencies that we can recommend them to that will do some tracking, and then they'll have a discounted rate of our service built into it, and they'll deal with the customer service on that side. Because usually it's the customer service, the hand holding, the integration, that's where we spend a lot of time and money. So it's hard to support somebody when it doesn't work out that way. So it's just the way we're built.
So then you want to have a big enough firm that you're working with that can justify the costs of bringing somebody like you on.
Right. So a lot of times if I get somebody who's a smaller company, a lot of times they'll reach out to their agency on our behalf and say, "Hey, I would like to have this technology." We'll have the conversation and we'll run a test to see if it makes sense. And it's usually eye-opening to the agency. If they're a legitimate agency, they'll say yes. If they're at least to try it or test it out, look for it for the customer. Um, if they say no, maybe look for a different agency.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
we're working with like a very large agency now that we're hoping to be able to, like, we have a couple different agencies depending on different things. Like, for the sell, like people that are managing their own budget, we have an agency that'll handle, like, basically add the tracking on for them, which makes life easy for them.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what I was going to say. Is there some sort of aggregate, like the smaller agencies or the smaller companies, the digital ad agencies that are smaller can come into a consortium of sort and get access to it, or do they, because I would say, to go with the bigger ad agencies comes with a bigger ad spend, comes with a bigger management fee and all those other things. And some of us smaller companies that still run ads and want to be able to have successful ads maybe don't have access to that size company, but we do have a smaller company that would really benefit from this as well and give them that competitive edge to compete with the bigger companies. How would they get access to something like this without having to go with a non-certified
yeah,
company?
we have a company that we work with now for smaller companies that are basically managing their own campaigns. They basically get them set up. It's a tracking tool that's really kind of unique on how it tracks, Google spend and Facebook spend and different things, and it gives them a layer of technology, and then the ability to turn our software on by just checking a box and paying a per visitor scan rate, which is really low. So this way, they're not having to commit to this stuff. Their tech and support all come through that company. So
Oh, nice.
our company doesn't have. So whenever we get somebody on the phone who's not quite there yet, we have a place to send them. We call it a fast track, to get them set up. Because, at one point we were a startup, and we know what it's like when you need the tools and you can't afford them. So
Yeah.
we found a way with it was actually a client of ours who said, "Hey, let's talk." And we're looking at what they were doing, and they're supporting a lot of small clients that we couldn't support because of the way we're built, and yet they're supporting them and giving them what they need and using our technology.
Nice. So another win-win. Love
Yeah.
it. Love it. Gosh, Rich, this has been great. We could go on. I mean, there's so many rabbit holes we could go down when it comes to this. I am thoroughly uncomfortable and scared about ad counts now. and the loss of money, the potential loss of the money that I'm spending, that my clients are spending, that, is going into ads. And so I think that this has been a truly valuable and eye-opening conversation. So where can listeners find out more about you and your company so they can get more information and make sure that they're doing the right stuff and
Sure.
not throwing money out the window to
I-
bots?
I'm easy to find. I'm Rich Kahn, Kahn on LinkedIn. I do a lot of posting about tech information, and I do a lot of podcasts. So I post a lot of segments. We get a lot of nice little clips that we post on a weekly basis. But I would recommend the audience going to Anura.io. We literally just published this week the internet's first comprehensive guide on ad fraud. It's
Mm.
free. It's I think 70 pages long. It's comprehensive. So basically it goes through all different types, marketing channels, things you can do on your own to identify fraud and things you can do for like that kind of stuff. And I think we spent like 9 or 10 months putting it together. So a lot of good information. And like I said, it's a free download. So it's something they can come to the site, download it off our site, and that's where I'd start.
Yeah, exactly. The business owners need to be aware of what they want their teams to do, whether it's an offsite team or an internal team. You need to be aware of what you're asking them to do. So having a little bit of knowledge in this space by reading that 70-page report, listening to podcasts like this, following you on your channels, will give them that opportunity to go, hey, I don't have all the answers, but I have a question. And if you have a good question, someone down the chain will be able to provide the answer. Yes or no, we're not using it. We should be using it. Okay, if we really think we need to use it, where do we go? And then now we have the resource that would help us there. So this is awesome.
Yep.
Whew. What an eye opener. I mean, what a truly scary topic of wasting, what we're trying to make. That's money that goes in your pocket. And if
Yeah.
you're throwing it out the door on ad fraud, then it's terrible.
Yep.
Ah, all right, listeners, thanks for tuning in today. I hope you picked up some valuable insights and actionable ideas that you can take to make your business more profitable. And as I mentioned earlier, it might be time for a fresh perspective. And why not? We're offering a free growth and marketing audit. And in just one powerful session, we'll uncover some real opportunities to drive growth for your business. Maybe we'll even have something on there about this. Ready to make an impact? Go visit profitbooster.biz and get started. And don't forget to subscribe. You don't want to miss any of our future shows. You can always catch Profit with a Plan on any of your favorite podcast platforms. And we're looking forward to more great profitable information on next week's show. So until then, make your plans and profit with them. Thanks so much, Rich.
Thank you.